All right. So this week's code topic is be prompt, start on time, to work appointments, projects, etc. Ben, do you have any comments?
If you're always early, you're never late.
Perfect.
My dad used to tell me that all the time.
Yep.
Whenever we left for anything and leaving an hour early.
So we've
17
had,
days.
17 days without a recordable injury, but 0 days without a first aid. And then I'm going to continue kind of on the cold weather side of things and talk about cold stress today. Frostbite, hypothermia, staying warm out there. So frostbite, we've all had cold hands, maybe the early symptoms of frostbite, or, maybe you've had major frostbite. But, if your hands are getting really cold and numb and you can't feel them, they're turning kind of white and swollen. That's, symptoms of frostbite. So, you want to get your hands warmed up, because if you let it go on, you're going to get, some of the increased symptoms. They're going to get spotty, really red. And even the skin can start to die. Hypothermia, the warning signs. So, hypothermia, if you're getting really cold, you're getting kind of uncontrolled breathing, having trouble breathing, you're shivering, just intense, you can't stop. You're not thinking right, you're mentally confused, and then you're getting lost with coordination. Your body's stiff. Yeah, you just don't feel right. Those are the earlier warning signs. Some of the more acute signs would be you're getting cold and blue skin, irregular heartbeat, weak pulse, and enlarged pupils. Some treatment is Talmon. I can't see it right now.
Think so.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so the big things with frostbite is just treat it like a burn. I know some people run their little burns under the water, but if you handle a burn roughly, it's gonna hurt like heck. It's just if you have a bad enough burn, it's gonna burn the nerve ending, so you're not gonna feel it, just like frostbite. And that's actually where that sort of stuff gets treated. So just make sure not to rough handle it. Just keep it dry, keep it passively warm it, so just let it warm at room temperature, and just kind of let it be. If it's really bad though, you're going to want to go to the hospital, and they're going to treat you at a burn center for it.
And then hypothermia.
Yep. So for hypothermia, you can actively warm somebody. One thing going back to frostbite is that just like a burn, you're opening yourself up to hypothermia in the process. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, you're already cold, and then you're damaging your skin, and then you can end up hypothermic. So you can actively warm people with that. So warm fluids if it's minor. You can do hot packs and stuff like that in the armpits and groin. But get them somewhere warm, get them somewhere into some dry clothes, and if they're hallucinating or anything like that or acting weird, consider bringing them to the hospital.
Yeah, so if you get warm up out there, don't make sure you're not getting cold. So wind chill chart here. This is just kind of for everybody to look at and think about. So we have this chart here that shows the temperature on the top and the wind speed on the side, and you can see that if it's 30 degrees out, which it's pretty warm, considering how cold it can get. But if you have a 30-mile-per-hour wind, the temp feels like 15 degrees. So take wind into account when you're working outside. Didn't know I did that. All right, cold stress prevention. So recognize these signs and symptoms. If you're getting cold, if you notice your coworker is getting cold, make sure they take a break, get them warmed up. Avoid caffeine, alcoholic beverages. They can, dehydrate you. So stay hydrated, drink a lot of water. Also, the type of fabric makes a difference. So I used to do a lot of winter camping, and I was always told that cotton kills. So, cotton loses a lot of insulation when it gets wet. So you want to wear something wool or synthetic, something that retains some heat when it gets wet. Wear layers. So wear layers. You can always take clothes off if you get too hot, but it's hard to put clothes on if you don't have them. So wear an outer layer, a middle layer, an inner layer, and wear a skull cap under your hard hat, and have good boots for the weather, and good socks. Oh, sorry about that. There you go. Bring an extra set of clothing with you on those cold, wet days. You don't want to get wet and have to work in that all day long. Wear somewhat loose clothing, not super baggy clothing that's gonna catch on everything, but wear loose clothing to allow some ventilation and allow your body to dry out if it gets a little wet. Take breaks, consume warm water, high calorie food, and use the buddy system. Look out for your fellow workers and everyone around you. So that's all I have.
Okay, great. I think we'll all be a little chilled at some point this winter.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you
Yep.
get cold, take a break.
Okay, I'll take over the screen. Thank you, guys. Okay, do you see my screen?
Yep, we got it.
All right. So for announcements, of course, we're right up to the end of the year here. We've got next week, the end of next week begins really the holiday weekends. So we've got our schedule here, the Christmas holiday schedule. We have Friday, the 22nd, which is a week from today at 6:45 a.m. to noon. We have the hams and bonuses at ECI office. So immediately following the safety meeting. And then at noontime on Friday, we'll have the Christmas barbecue at the ECI main shop. And then on Monday, the 25th, we are closed for Christmas. And also for the following weekend, there'll be the New Year's holiday schedule where we have Friday, the 29th. We close about 1 p.m., kind of flexible there. And then Monday, the 1st, we would be closed all day for New Year's Day. And then come back on the 2nd for 2024, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. The year has flown by. So I have here the 2023 ECI annual employee giving. These are the charities that were selected by some of our employees who form a committee to promote and select the charities. And we have the Classic Mike Lawyer Foundation, the Vermont National Guard Charitable Foundation, the UVM Medical Cancer Foundation, and the Make-A-Wish of Vermont. So all local, good, worthy charities that we love to support. So you can contribute direct cash, or you can have money taken out of your paycheck in the coming weeks, or you can also donate some ATO. So there's a few different options, and a lot of people, we're very proud to report, a lot of people have contributed. Last year we had over $23,000, I believe it was, in total contributions. So hope to see that or more this year. And for this year's 2023 deer season, we got some pictures. We have some great deer pictures. I've never seen such a great collection of deer
Hmm.
photos here. This is probably the top one here, Brian's deer from Essex. Just an enormous rack. I saw the rack, and it just curls around there like you wouldn't believe for Vermont deer. Ben, he had a couple harvests this year. One with the highlight here was his elk cow from Lincoln County, Wyoming, earlier this year. I have Chris Bopfin with his bear. And Jeremy Dean with his main deer. He might have gotten the Vermont deer too. I can't remember. Nice main deer there. And Adam Piper with has his Illinois deer. Big fat one there. Ben Heath has got his doe. I don't know if that must have been muzzle season. Eric Ross here again. He's got a doe here with his crossbow. And myself, I had a 4-pointer from Williston. And Matt Saganowitz, St. Albans Town. Colby Saganowitz, St. Albans Town. Nice rack on that. That buck there, nice. And Phil got a real nice 7-pointer too. We've got a lot of good deer this year. Ron Johnson won the buck pull. Whoops, scooting by too fast for Ron's deer. There we go. It was the winner in the buck pull for regular season. And we have Wayne got this 8-pointer in the islands, South Hero, Grand Isle, South Hero. I can't remember what he said.
Wow. By Bo.
Nice. Yeah, by Bo. Yep. And we have Dylan Summer. He's got an 8-pointer from Cambridge. Nice looking deer there too. Quite the collection of deer. I don't think I've definitely never seen anything like that from the ECI hunting gang. So congratulations, everybody. So this week for the project of the week, we're going to talk about the North Wastewater Treatment Facility Emergency Inverted Siphon Design, Build, Repair in Burlington, and Ben Heath is going to present this, right? Ben, do you want to take the screen over, or you want me to scroll down?
I'll take the screen over, Ken.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, good
And
morning,
you can
everybody.
Wrap it up with the project or the archive project too.
Will
So I
do.
don't have to switch back.
Yeah, you got it. During the Great Vermont Flood of July 10th and 11th, the city of Burlington North Wastewater Treatment Plant stopped receiving sanitary sewer flow. An existing 24-inch cast iron sewer pipe, which crosses the Winooski River, was damaged during the floods. Approximately 1.3 million gallons per day of sanitary sewer was flowing into the Winooski River. ECI responded to that emergency call and installed a mile-long temporary bypass system in approximately 4.5 days through the north end of the city. Then in September, ECI responded to a request for proposals to provide design build services to the city with the goal of repairing and or replacing the broken 24-inch cast iron sanitary sewer pipe, which was located at the bottom of the Winooski River. ECI teamed up with M&K Commercial Divers to provide all underwater work and Green Mountain Marine Services to provide barge, skip boat, and long stick excavators. The city had very limited information on the existing condition and location of the 24-inch cast iron sanitary sewer pipe. The goal of the project was to determine where the pipe is located, identify the limits of the damaged pipe, and repair the pipe so that sewer could flow to the plant through the pipe and that the temporary bypass system could be decommissioned. We learned that when the pipe was installed in the 1950s, the installer strung the pipe out over the ice in the middle of the winter. Then they used dynamite to explode the ice and the pipe sank to the bottom of the river. It is now believed that when the pipe hit the bottom, the impact broke several of the pipe joints and the pipe has leaked since the day it was installed. M&K Commercial Divers performed an inspection dive of the existing pipe it was determined that the pipe was damaged between the shoreline and approximately 125 feet into the river. The river depth along this section of the Winooski was approximately 15 feet deep. The divers used an air lifter to push air into the pipe and then looked for air bubbles at the joints as a rough method of determining the limits of the damaged pipe. Using the divers to guide us and the barge for access, we installed H-piles along the downstream side of the existing pipe. The goal was to use the H-piles to ensure that the replacement pipe was installed along the same alignment as the existing pipe so that the connection could be made. The piles also provided stability during the pick, or the picks, to eliminate the flow of the river as a factor for getting the alignment correct, and also provided the crane and excavator operators an above water visual of where the pipe needed to be lowered into the river. Once the piles were installed, M&K Commercial Divers cut the bolt on the last section in the river, and we removed approximately 125 feet of pipe from the river bottom. For each pipe section, the divers would rig the pipe and connect the rigging to the excavator bucket, and we would pull the pipe out of the river. In order to get the rigging under the pipe, the divers would use an air lifter to create a void space under the pipe so that the rigging could be installed. With all of the existing pipe removed, we then excavated as far into the shoreline embankment as possible and practical to keep the pipe as low in elevation as possible to help secure the pipe should the river embankment continue to erode. We then bolted together with rigid mechanical barrel couplings several lengths of pipe, and we hired CCS to pick and set the pipes into the river with their 275-ton crane. The pipe was rigged to lay in the geometry desired. The pipe was rigged to lay in the geometry desired, was placed up against the H-piles, and was slid down into the river and guided by the divers. The diver would communicate with the dive trailer, and the dive trailer would communicate with the operators of the crane and the excavators to make small adjustments to the pipe to slide it into the connection fitting. The pipe was backfilled with crushed stone, and the embankment was stabilized with riprap stone that came off of the Burlington Airport project. The H-piles were then cut at the elevation of the top of the replacement pipe, and the buried portion of the piles were left in the river. ECI has to warranty this repair for 1 year, so we left the piles in the river to support the pipe and prevent it from moving during future flood events. Once the pipe was connected back to the plant, we turned off the temporary bypass pumps, which we had installed originally, and we put a green dye into the waste stream and set up a Vactor truck at the plant inlet structure. The Vactor was there to extract any fats, oils, and greases that may have settled out in the pipe, and the green dye was used to confirm that there were not any leaks in the replacement pipe or the remaining existing pipe. The city used drones to look for green dye in the river, and through that process, it was confirmed that the pipe was not leaking and that the waste stream was entering the plant. The city of Burlington was very grateful that we responded to their request for assistance and were able to complete the work well within the time window needed to gain FEMA funding for the repair. For all of the ECI team members that assisted with this successful effort, we were all able to experience working underwater for the first time. A lot of lessons were learned about working with divers and barges. We also learned a lot from the many challenges that come with working underwater. We formed a great relationship with both M&K Commercial Divers and Green Mountain Marine Services, and we look forward to the opportunity to use what we learned on this project to assist other communities with underwater work. So this is a record drawing that we prepared to provide the city with information about what was installed and where. So the Winooski River is very wide, especially in this location. This is right before it enters the delta at the outlet into Lake Champlain. To the left is the wastewater treatment plant on the north end of the city at the end of North Ave. Roughly 10% of the city's sewer flow enters this plant. Here is an image of the barge that was provided by Green Mountain Marine Services. What you're seeing here is these metal spuds that he drives through some openings that are in the barge, and those spuds go into the lake bottom and secure the boat into whatever location you want. We moved this boat around a lot, and it was really handy to have this. We would have not have been as successful without it. Here's an image of the barge in the background and the M&K Commercial Divers getting suited up for the inspection dive. The weather was cold and the water was getting colder, so they have wetsuits where they have a burner up on top of the bank, and they're able to heat up water and force that water into the wetsuit so that the entire time he's underwater, his whole suit's getting fed with a warm water, which they can adjust the temperature. The turbidity in the river was the biggest factor. You know, there was times when there was never a time when he could see really well. It was usually just a couple feet in front of his eyes, and on top of his head they have a camera which we can see inside of the dive trailer what he's looking at. Here's an image of. Uh-oh. So here's an image of them getting suited up. It's a pretty technical piece of equipment. These guys, this is what they do for a living. They go and they go inside of tanks at wastewater plants and water plants. They repair all kinds of stuff under the water. And the city of Burlington has used them a lot in the past. Here is an image of us driving the H piles. So this down in the bottom left here, you can see the diver in the water. So this was technical work. We had to, the goal here was to drive these H piles right along the downstream side of the existing pipe so that it was touching. So the diver was in the water. He was positioning the H pile through communication with the dive trailer, and we would make small adjustments to get that H pile right where we wanted it, and then we would set it with, you know, by basically pounding it down in with the bucket and then using an air hammer to finish it off. So we drove those all along the alignment and of the pipe that we were going to replace, and we added an extra one at the other end of the pipe that was staying in the water so that the whole system, including our connection, was secure. And it also gave us the opportunity, like I said during the narrative, to make sure that the vertical and horizontal geometry of the new pipe was going to set into place exactly where the old one was so that we could bell the pipe without having too much trouble. I spent quite a bit of time in here, and this is the dive trailer where on this little TV screen we could see what the diver was seeing, and through a communication system that you see here, we are able to understand what he's looking at and what he's saying, and we can communicate with the rest of the folks that were there. Here's another image of us putting the H piles in, and there's the air hammer that was used. The long stick excavators were really critical for this project too. We needed a lot of reach to be able to get out to where we could have the boat in a good location and be able to maneuver and drive these piles in. We did a lot of digging with these machines too. So here is the first stick of pipe that came out of the ground. This is a joint that was, by our estimation, broken on the day that it was installed. Most of the joints looked like this that we pulled out. They were all busted right at the bell. Most of the bolts were rotted out, but this is what essentially led to the pipe failing. The floods caused it to break at a location near the shoreline, and then several of the joints were damaged even further from that pipe moving during the flood. Here's an image of us pulling that first piece out. So dive trailer in the background. I'm standing on the barge taking the picture. Here's an H pile. And I talked about the air lifter. It's really just a piece of PVC pipe with an air connection from an air compressor. They would use that to blow or to blow sediment out from underneath the pipe so that they could rig a strap around the pipe. Here's an image of us when we were first starting to get things rigged up with the crane that we had hired from CCS. Very tight space here, not a lot of room to work. We had to make ourselves room by cutting trees and building a pad. So this is the first string of pipes that we put together. Our goal here was to try to limit how many pipe connections we had to make underwater. None of us had ever done it before. We were concerned that it was going to be challenging, to say the least, and so our goal was to string together as many as we could and we felt comfortable with, and then to lower the whole thing and then to bell it all as one single unit. So we did that in 2 separate strings. So we made 2 river connections, and we had a lot of support from folks on the barge and on land, and we were making small adjustments based on what the diver was telling us as we lowered the pipe into the river. So we started on the upstream side and then slowly lowered it over to the H piles and then rested it up against the H piles and put the pipe down along the H pile. One of the big concerns we had from at the very beginning of this is what the impact of the river flow would have on our ability to get the pipe into place. And this H pile idea completely solved that problem. It didn't really matter what the river flow was because those piles were just going to stop the pipe from going downstream and let us set it right into place. Here's the second piece. We wanted to make it so that like I said, to limit the number of connections we made inside the river underwater. So our last piece, we had a 45 that came up and got us out of the river and into the dry. So we set this one. This one was the trickier of the two because we had to deal with this bend and as you can see, the rigging here was pretty specific and you know, this is a long string, so if you need to move the pipe on the belt on the spigot end, you know, an inch, there was sometimes in some cases even feet of movement we had to make on the other end. Here we are lowering it down into the river and making adjustments to get it into place. And of course, once we had it into place, the diver bolted it all up underwater. Here's another image. You know, it's challenging to be up above ground trying to watch what the diver's doing. The diver is not an expert in pipe work like some of our folks are, so we're trying to help them understand what to do and they're trying to help us understand what they're seeing, and a lot of communication happening there. Here we are finally working up in the dry, installing the rest of the pipe to the inlet structure at the plant. There's our final connection we made to get everything bolted together. We used mechanical rigid connections all the way through up until we were way out of the river. So every bell was cut off and every pipe connection is mechanically bolted together. So that way, if the river continues to erode, which inevitably it will, this is all rugged and isn't going to get pulled out of the embankment. Here's an image of us doing a little backfilling with some crushed stone to get the pipe secure. Not too often we get to dump rock into a waterway in Vermont. And here's the Vactor truck. So as I mentioned, the city was concerned that there was going to be a whole bunch of fats and greases and oils that were stuck in the pipe from it settling out over the time between the floods and now. And so we had this truck there ready to suck up any of that stuff as soon as it came out. And over a mile away, the city entered green dye into the waste stream, and when it got to the plant, it looked nuclear. It was so bright and clear, and it's very obvious to us that if there was a leak in the river, we absolutely would have seen it, because even in their wastewater plant, we were finding it in their clarifiers and in their settling basins. So that's it for the North Plant. From the photo archives, we have a project at IBM in Essex Junction in 1997. And this looks similar to what we were doing, but I have no knowledge of this project. So maybe Ben or Ken can help us.
That's the outfall to the industrial waste treatment plant over at IBM. And that's
on the Winooski River.
On the Winooski. Right. And that's out in the river, actually. That's a porta dam that we installed. That's well out into the river where the outfall is. 24-inch.
Yep.
That was a lock ring system. Kind of cool. You 24-inch ductile iron pipe, and then when you shove it together after you get it put together, I remember there were these steel or cast iron lock ring system that we placed in there that fit in a little groove that hold the pipe from coming apart. So interesting system, a little different than your mechanical joint, but you couldn't pull it apart. You could pick it up just like a piece of PE. I was thinking about that last night because Ken showed me that picture. Pretty cool.
Yeah, very similar to, well, this was, what did you say, 97? So that's going on 28 years ago.
Yep.
27 years ago. Wow.
You can tell that's,
okay, guys.
That's the 890, the old 892.
Yeah, the 892. All right. Well, thank you very much, Ben and everybody, and have a safe day out there. We'll hopefully see everybody on next Friday too. I'm sure for picking up hams, like we said, bonuses, hams, noontime barbecue. And hope to see you all there. And we'll have a little bit of a ceremony. Ben, are we having any of the charity dignitaries coming to receive anything, or what's the plan there?
I've reached out to a couple. I haven't heard back. Sometimes it's a little tricky on that day to get them
Yep.
to come. So what we
Yep.
might end up doing is have them come visit after the first of the year if nobody can make it.
That works good too, because then we have an
yeah.
individual one at a time and it's not
Yeah,
rushed. So
I actually do know that we'll hopefully have Tom Lawyer there who can and Sarah Wallen, she's on the board of directors for the Mike Lawyer Foundation. So I think we will have, I'll correct myself.
there'll be some
Yes,
representatives.
there will be.
All right. Okay. All right. Turn it back over to Matt to close out.
Yeah, thanks everybody. If you're watching a group setting, just please send over attendance so we can capture it. And let's have a safe day. Let's have a great day.
All right. See ya.
Guys.
So you're not getting the emails?
No, I am getting the emails. I just don't have a browser on my phone. I have Teams.